Hi everyone, welcome to a new tutorial. Thanks for joining me today. So today I have a sped up video for you, and I'm going to be talking about how to approach difficult textures with colored pencil. And in this one I will show you the process of drawing gecko skin. That was requested, or not specifically gecko skin but lizard skin, and I found this reference photo which I thought was very interesting. So this gecko skin is part of 4 texture samples, which are all going to be on Patreon. I still have to do the bottom ones. They will all be available for the $4 tier. And I hope you'll find this helpful. And also I'm going to keep my explanation a little bit general so you can apply it to your own drawings as well. So let's get started. I've already started in the video. So first let's explain my materials. And basically, as always, I am using polychromos and a white Caran d'Ache luminance, which I use to blend. And then the paper is Canson 1557, 180 grams. So that's what I always work on basically. And for this gecko skin, I am starting out by mapping out all these little circular things, which I'm not sure yet what they're called, so I'll just call them circular things. And that's very important. So I always like to create a roadmap for myself, especially when there are difficult patterns in the animal, like here. So I'm drawing out all these little dots or circles. And I also look at the reference photo to see if they're lined up in a certain way, and try to recreate that. Also, all these things are different. So all these little patterns are a little bit different from each other. So I also try to put that in my sketch already. And then after drawing all those out, I started out by creating some contrast. So that's what I always like to do, is after doing my roadmap, I'm going to place my shadows in. So that makes it easier to judge how dark you can go with the lightest areas later. So that's what I'm doing here. With dark sepia I'm going in between all these little patterns and darkening those up. And I make sure that the edges stay very sharp, so I'm working with a sharp pencil. And that brings them forward a lot already, which makes it a lot easier to apply my colors to all these individual things later on. And very important is, especially with difficult textures like this one, is to keep your patience. I sped it up so it looks like it didn't take a long time, but actually this one square, it took me more than an hour, about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that is super important, to keep your patience. And you really have to draw all those individual things out. And or if you want to do it, if you want to make it as realistic as possible, you have to draw them all out. There's no quicker way to do it. So it all comes down to patience in the end. So this step also took quite a long time, going in between all these things. And I kept my pressure pretty light still, because I wanted to add more colors on top of my dark sepia. So I don't push too hard within my first layers. So then I decided to go on top with a dark green to give a little bit more color to my dark sepia areas. And then also in the very darkest areas, I went on top with dark indigo. So I always like to put in multiple colors, even in small areas like this. I always try to layer as many colors on top of each other as possible to make sure that the drawing doesn't become flat, especially in shadow areas. So I don't apply my dark indigo everywhere. I look at my reference to see where the darkest shadows in between these things are, and that's where I added the dark indigo. So then, to make the areas a little bit smoother, to push the colors into the paper, I used the Caran d'Ache luminance just to blend it out a bit, but I made sure to not go over the edges of all my sketched out circles, otherwise they would become a bit blurry, and I didn't want that. But using the Caran d'Ache luminance, it lightens up the colors a bit. It makes them a bit more dull. So I always go back in later again with the dark sepia, like I'm doing here, just to darken it up again and sharpen the lines. I'm also creating some individual shadows next to all these circle things. Please let me know in the comments what these are called, because I have no idea. Alright, so then when I was happy with the darkest shadows, I started to pick some colors for my nodules. Maybe that's what they're called, nodules. I'm not sure. Alright, so for my circular things, I started to pick some colors. And also very important to pick some different types of greens and also add some other colors with it. But I started with the base layer of green, very bright green. This was grass green, if I'm right. And I started out by adding a base layer. Especially around the edges, I wanted the centers of all these individual things to come forward a bit. So I kept the centers open because those are catching the most light. So I focused my color on the edges. And then after my base layer was done, I went in with the darker green with a more blue undertone to it and added some shadow, also focused around the edges. And that's how I slowly build up from light to dark. So initially I start by mapping out my darkest shadows, and then when that is done, I start by adding from light to dark on the rest, so the areas that are not colored in yet. Also, I decided that I wanted to add some yellow or some dark yellow just to create a bit more variation in the tones, and also some blue, especially on the bottom and in the bottom left. And that's when the base of this little sample was done. So when I feel that the paper is starting to get filled up, I use the Caran d'Ache to push the colors into the paper and smooth everything out. And then after that I had to go in with my greens again to make the drawing brighter. And then you can also go in and add some extra detail, separate all these things a little bit more, go in between the shadows and just darken up here and there. And actually just the secret to drawing with colored pencil with this technique, so on white paper, the secret is patience. On pastel mat, everything goes a little bit quicker as you can add light on top of dark. With this technique on white paper, that's not possible. So patience is the key. You have to have the patience to start by mapping out all your textures, then fill in the shadows, and then start building up from light to dark very slowly in order to make this look realistic. And of course, when you do the whole animal, you're not going to draw so zooms in. So this is just to demonstrate how you build up such a texture, and then you can see how you can apply that to your own work. Alright, so that sums it up for today. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think is the most difficult texture to draw, and maybe I can use it for a next tutorial. So let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.